Well, one thing that I've really never had the experience of before is we were filming almost exclusively in one set of locations. And bar one thing, we were actually playing the geography of them for real. So I don't know, that just added to it somehow, that you were just in the middle of this place and this was the place you were in, and you weren't fudging anything in terms of going through that door and coming out there. And then, Eddie Marsan said a great thing the other day about complexity, to demystify the notion of complexity, particularly for actors, but I think this goes into filmmaking and TV making as well. Complexity is simplicity by degrees. You've heard this interview. And I think the same can be said for complexity in terms of atmosphere. There are a lot of components to that, and you deal with them one at a time. Well, I think he's a very open-hearted character. There's a kind of ingrained showmanship about him, which I think comes from his background in the fairground. But that was the first quality I sort of appreciated about him, was this real open heart. And I hope you see that and you feel it, it opens you up, it cracks you open a bit. Well, we don't see him with any other children, but we glean that he has got a son who he misses greatly, and so there's that in it. She's of course suddenly away from her father, and that might be why a bridge is built between them. But there's also, I don't know, although Cooper has something very streetwise about him, he's kind of on the periphery of things. He kind of feels like an outsider, and I think he intuits something about Bea in that she has something of that too. Very intuitive, verging on non-verbal. And I just had a similar thing with Lenny Abramson, actually. And it's wonderful. You just start finishing each other's sentences, and sometimes there aren't even sentences. Hugo go, I think, it's kind of, there's a little bit of, and I'd go, and I wouldn't even be thinking what, I would just be listening. You go, yeah, that's it. I go, oh, okay. I don't know. It was very, very nice to have that. Yes, it's a useful title in the same way that Waiting for Godot is a useful title for people to watch the play. It gives you an immediate context to something which is playing around with the idea of context in the case of Beckett. And the fact it's called California Avenue, and then you see what this, we're not in California. So it's got this sense of an aspiration and a desire to be somewhere else that's echoed in Bea, wanting to go to Mars. Yeah, that does a lot, I think. And there's something that's kind of echoing in the characters inside themselves. None of them are quite where they want to be, but they're really making the most of where they are. They're very resourceful, buoyant, sunny people. All I know is there's a certain kind of, it's not just TV, there's certain kind of TVs and movies I remember from my childhood, which were probably older than, they weren't necessarily made in the 80s, there'd been stuff that was made earlier than that. The kind of like Hayley Mills kind of stuff. And they were delightful things, but there was a strain in them that really tugged at your heart. And they stay with you, and it was a very particular quality of those things that I don't, things change, and there are different kind of movements within movies and storytelling and everything. But I don't know, this felt like a hark back to that, but not in a kitsch way, not in a pseudo way. It felt like it had taken all the ingredients of that from its very centre and sort of let it flower into something.